Of course, a president that everybody should shut down at this point. I'm talking about Barack Obama.
Don't be thick, all right?
I want to play you this stuff in this hour. It's Obama sitting down with Mark Maron. I've kind of been building to this so far in the show today because there are a lot of teachable moments. The day began with Martin Sheen. He was doing a live event with MSNBC yesterday in which he trashed Donald Trump. This guy's the smallest nothing there is, on a day that Donald Trump probably clinched the Nobel Peace Prize for next year because they vote in January. But regardless of whether or not he wins and the committee doesn't like him, who cares? The point is the hostages got out. Something even Alyssa Farah on The View said would never happen. Okay, The View.
The View was awful.
A clip has gone viral because Alyssa Farah said a year ago, if Trump gets the hostages out, I will wear a hat on this show for one day, okay? Because she never thought it would have to happen. Nobody in politics ever thought it would have to happen because the truth is nobody really believed Hamas could be reasoned with, dealt with, and pointed in that direction. But lo and behold, what Trump did in coming along at the time he did was treat the Gaza situation very similar to the way he made the Abraham Accords happen in his first administration. Box out the bad guy. The Abraham Accords were all about legitimizing trade relations between Israel and the 6 Arabic nations in the region and bringing them to acknowledge the fact that Iran was the disruptor. They're the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. They want to blow Israel off the map. How about you guys get together, make a bunch of money, and we box Iran out economically? We minimize their ability to disrupt our region. That's essentially what he presented to Hamas. Hey, man, give us back the hostages, make a peace deal, or we are going to minimize your ability to disrupt the region. We've already wiped out your leadership 3 times over, so how about we just go out and make a deal? And Hamas looked at each other like,
that can't be good.
Because they didn't want to be like the 7th or 8th iteration of Hamas leadership to get wiped off the map. They realized this was an unwinnable war. So ultimately, Trump was able to hit them where it hurts. They absolutely positively respect strength. It's the only language they speak. And lo and behold, the hostages got free. And on a day like yesterday, where the hostages got free at a time when no one thought they ever would, Trump is celebrating a monumental victory, like a victory the world over. Do you remember when Trump got into office and the Democrats were like, my friend's over in Paris, and he says nobody likes us anymore. No one likes America. They're like laughing at us. Do you remember when people would say that and we'd be like, who cares? First of all, we don't care what they say. But second of all, you're lying. The world, the entirety of the world, thinks Donald Trump is the man right now. Like ticker tape parade the world over for what this guy just accomplished. And in the rest of the world, where they don't allow, entire cities to be overrun by crime, where they don't disrespect a president getting his streets cleaned up and under control, Donald Trump is revered for trying to get Chicago under control, or trying to get D.C. under control, or trying to get Memphis under control. Because the rest of the world, where they do value human life and have a lot more empathy for the law abider as opposed to the law breaker, they think everything Donald Trump is doing is good. Only in the Democrat Party are we having our democracy threatened or our rights trampled upon. And it's not because they believe it. It's because they think this is the avenue back to power.
You gotta do better than that.
You see, Obama is bad at politics. He is bad at media. He's bad at all of it because he was a good communicator. He came along at the perfect moment in time. We had Bush on the tail end of an unpopular war. We had a housing crisis. We had a fuel situation that was spiking gas prices for guys like me who were driving taxis at the time. It was a big mess. And yes, he kind of timed the zeitgeist right and became a transformative candidate. He was the first black president. And he had a good, trendy brand. And people got behind him. And he won and was very popular. And for that reason, the media didn't want to lose access to the White House. So they covered Barack Obama like he was the Queen of England. Don't write a bad word about the Queen or you're not going to get invited the next time she steps out on the balcony and waves to the people and farts and goes back inside. Don't say a bad word about the Queen, or the next time the corgis are out for a walk, you're not going to get invited to photograph it and ask her one question. That's what they did with Obama. Okay, no one ever criticized him, so he got used to going on TV and developing a lot of bad media habits, the biggest of which is the lack of self-awareness. Obama does something Biden does. Okay, you know how we used to say Biden would campaign in like a Pennsylvania room and say something as if no one was ever going to hear it in any other state, and that's how he would constantly get caught contradicting himself. Obama is so used to people not saying bad words about him in the media that he opens the Mark Maron interview by saying Democrats criticize too many people and lecture too many people. And then the very next quote is him lecturing Republicans on how to run the government. Okay, and it really speaks to a lack of self-awareness that doesn't get pushed back from Maron. This, in a nutshell, I'm going to play these two clips. I'll tell you everything you need to know about why Barack Obama has lost his ability to really influence our politics and be a driving force. It's because he's not paying attention. And it's like the thing they did with Michelle Obama. These two are the two greatest living examples of America fulfilling its promise that all men are created equal. They are the ultimate symbols of black achievement. They are the first black family to occupy the White House. Okay, unless you count when Thomas Jefferson had his side chicks over, but that's another story. That's another story for another time.
What the hell did you just say?
But the point is, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama are supposed to be the ultimate symbols of empowerment. And instead, the Democrats just fly them out of one of their 3 beachfront mansions to tell everybody that no black people can get ahead in this day and age, or to tell people that our rights are under assault. Guys, Barack Obama authorized all the spying on Donald Trump's campaign. When you talk about a weaponization of justice, Obama. When you talk about Russia and the made-up Russian collusion hoax and the people trying to prosecute it, knowing it was Oppo research bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign, Obama. Comey, all the devious underhanded moves he made, Obama. Okay, that all happened through Obama. Google being forced to admit it censored Americans at the request of the White House, Biden. Happened under Biden. Think about that. Why do I bring it up? Because all of the things Obama is accusing Trump of being are things the Democrats have done.
Bingo.
But let's start with the lecturing. He criticizes his own party, and you're like, all right, so good. So far, so good. Here it is, clip 21.
There's been a lot of postmortem about Democrats and progressives, and you can't just be a scold all the time. You can't constantly lecture people without acknowledging that you've got some blind spots too, and that life's messy. And the vulnerability, I think, comes in saying, all right, I've got some core convictions. I've got beliefs that I'm not going to compromise, but I'm also not going to assert I am so righteous and so pure and so insightful that there's not the possibility that maybe I'm wrong on this, or that other people, if they don't say things exactly the way I say them or see things exactly the way I do, that somehow they're bad people.
Okay, so that's Obama. And you're like, wow, look at that. He's criticizing his own party. And he's saying to the Democrats, you got to have some self-awareness. And just because they don't see it the way I do doesn't mean they're not bad people. Okay, well, the next 2 clips are him doing exactly that. Here he is first, starting with Latino voters, clip 22.
We're being tested right now. I think people, and that includes young people, understand there are consequences to the choices that we're making. If you decide not to vote, that's a consequence. If you are a Hispanic man and you're frustrated about inflation, and so you decided, you know what, all that rhetoric about Trump doesn't matter, I'm just mad about inflation. And now your sons are being stopped in L.A. because they look Latino without the ability to call anybody, might just be locked up. That's a test. There's some clarity that's coming about right now. It'd be great if we weren't tested this way, but you know what? We probably need to be shaken out of our complacency anyway.
So that's Obama. And he goes from don't lecture everybody to Latinos. You're being tested right now. Yeah, you were mad about inflation, but how about ICE and your sons being stopped in L.A.? No one is being stopped in L.A. for looking Latino. This is a lie. ICE is targeting specific people for specific reasons, and it's not because of their race. It's because of the fact that some of them are known to be here illegally. Okay, it's because of the fact that some of them are wanted for criminal acts in this country. But Obama, again, gives you a lecture. Hey, Latino voters, I know you wanted lower inflation, but you're really being tested about bigger things right now.
He is so full of shit, this guy.
Okay, and that's the lying. Now here comes the lecture. Clip 23.
When you now start seeing the politicization of the military, deliberately.
They just landed in Chicago.
Yeah, when you have what looks like a deliberate end run around not just a concept, but a law that's been around for a long time, posse comitatus, that says you don't use our military on domestic soil unless there's an extraordinary emergency of some sort. That when you see an administration suggest that ordinary street crime is an insurrection or
a terrorist act.
Or a terrorist act.
So I really want you to think about this, because this is the Barack Obama who's criticizing Trump's deployment of ICE. This is the same Barack Obama who used ICE to deport more people than any American president in the history of the United States of America.
Bingo, man, bingo.
And again, you talk about the media not pointing out his lack of bad habits, his lack of self-awareness, and allowing him to get worse at this. At no point does Mark Maron in that interview go, by the way, you deported more people than Trump in both terms combined. So how does that make you different? He doesn't have to answer to that, but that's reality. That's why he's bad at this. The media made him worse. This is why I've been saying on the show for 5 years, I'm like, if you're a liberal, you think it's so good that the media's in your pocket, but they're actually bad for you, because your politicians have gotten used to not having to have a real substantive conversation. Your politicians have gotten used to not having someone call BS. And for that reason, when they have to fight for their ideals, they can't. That's why the Democrats are in such a bad spot right now. You can't actually show up to a struggling family's house and go, hey, I know you can't pay for anything, but good news. Men are allowed in women's locker rooms. You can't sell that idea. Hey, I know you're worried about crime as a single mom, get back and forth to your multiple jobs, but there's good news. I'm going to stop ICE from deporting the murderers and the rapists. You can't sell that. But they got in a habit of thinking they could because the media was laundering their ideas for them. Now when they're out there speaking on their own in a real world situation, everybody's like, this guy's an idiot. That's why Obama has no influence. Do you remember when Michelle Obama showed up to the DNC this year? And she spoke about how her mother warned her about the dangers of people who take too much money.
Oh, shut up, woman.
That's pretty much what the whole country said. Because Michelle Obama was getting paid $750,000 a speech. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if that might be too much money. I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like you could get by on $600,000 a speech, maybe even with a little couponing, some corner cutting, maybe even $500,000 a speech. But people who've made $500 million since they left the White House and are charging you $750,000 plus for a speech might fall under the category of people who take too much money. But the reason it's so tone deaf is not even because she's rich. People want to be rich in America. It's that, again, she just doesn't have the self-awareness to realize that if that's an evil metric, then she's one of the bad people too. And that's the problem for Obama. It's the gift and the curse. He was a young, hip, happening president, but he's going to live the next 50 years of his life in complete and total irrelevance.
And I'm out here in the real world, and I know what's right or wrong or bullshit.
Oh, girl, that can only mean one thing. Our producer, Josh, is like a snake charmer. He gets it out. If he plays Stranglehold, just the exact vase we're looking for out there in the woods somewhere, will put down a crossbow and emerge from the vase. Straight from Ted Quarters, the Motor City Madman himself, Ted Nugent, joining us on Fox Across America. Yo, Ted.
Yowza, Jimmy. Happy October. I hope you're having the greatest hunting season of your lives in downtown Manhattan. Greetings from the Nugent family.
Amen. Downtown Manhattan, you often feel hunted. I'm getting chased by wizards and time travelers and stuff like that. I could actually use you as my Secret Service, Ted.
You have never followed Uncle Ted around Central Park with my trusty slingshot on a cold October morning with a pocket full of marbles, squirrel hunting. I swear to God, that's actually happened, Jimmy, which is one of the many reasons why you love me so much.
Well, it's also one of the reasons schools don't have class trips to Central Park anymore. I didn't know why that was a thing. Now I do.
No, all right, but I got it covered. The guitar player, the author of Wango Tango, has covered the conservation ethic for the youth of America. We have a Ted Nugent Camp for Kids nonprofit charity, all volunteer, for 36 years. Ted Nugent Camp for Kids are teaching kids to celebrate the gift of life by being clean and sober, aim small, miss small, archery, the mystical flight of the arrow, the Zen, the martial arts, the path of one's life via the discipline of archery. I'm telling you, it sounds wild because it is.
Oh, I love that. And everything Ted Nugent related is accessible to everyone listening and watching at tednugent.com. That is correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, you'll see.
Yes, sir. If you can handle it, be sure you wear some Kevlar pantyhose around your face just to be able to handle the effervescent masculinity, which is, by the way, Jimmy, I love your effervescent masculinity in spite of the wardrobe. Thank you.
That's enough out of you. The great Ted Nugent is joining us today, and I do like giving out your website because I can't give out any of the websites my producer Mikey goes to. Okay? You can't give them out on the air, Ted. It's a family program.
And I don't want to hear about them because I would never visit them. They don't have the essence. They don't have the essence of, shall we say, the middle finger ballet.
All right, give me this. President Trump brokers a historic ceasefire in the Middle East, gets back the hostages. Is it true that Hamas actually came to the table because if they didn't, Trump was sending you in?
You know, that's a cute take on things, but it happens to be very accurate. I just spent another campfire. I have campfires every weekend and even during the week this week with hardworking Americans, just great Americans, entrepreneurs and welders and mechanics and plumbers, the most important people in the world. And they come and share a campfire with the Nugent family, and they pay a high dollar because I'm worth it. But we get to kill angry pork. Who doesn't want angry pork? My point is that your take on things, Jimmy Fela, is the pulse of the best people that I share these campfires with. July, August, September, now in October, into November. And we see what President Trump is doing. We still want to see some arrests. We want to see some convictions, Comey, Brennan, Clinton, Obama, but we're really pleased with the forward progress, especially epitomized by ending the thousands of years insanity and conflict over there. We hope it holds true, but I'll believe it when I see it that Hamas will put down the sword and actually be reasonable. But we're praying because Donald Trump has initiated the most important moment in our lives, I believe, Jimmy.
Is Ted Nugent joining us, if you're just tuning in? Do you think on some level, and you and I have had this conversation a million times about really truly being in touch with the universe. Do you think Trump has that as a superpower, in that the reason he's getting things done that other administrations have tried and failed, or maybe not tried hard enough at, is because he understands human nature in a very unique way?
Well, the art of the deal. Every minute of every day is a series of deals. You deal with your family, you deal with parenthood, you deal with business responsibilities, you deal with ethics, you deal with moral decisions. And we're watching this guy. When I first met him during the campaign in 2015, I was really impressed because he was, I wish I could use the word, if I'm kicking my bedding, that would be a sheet kicker.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is a real sheet kicker. He's believe it or not, this guy, this special guy, is as down to earth as the guys and gals that I share campfires with. He's an entrepreneur. He knows about sacrifice. He knows about risk taking. And that demands a higher level of awareness to make those deals, to be in the asset column. It's all about the choice, Jimmy, of being in the asset column versus the liability column. And I believe that this is the greatest president of our lifetime who demands that resources, effort, work ethic, morality communities, culture. You have to be in the asset column to benefit your fellow man, to benefit the environment, to benefit the bottom line financially. And this guy's doing, we throw around the term God's work. I think you're doing God's work in many ways, literally. But Donald Trump, if anybody in my lifetime is doing God's work as epitomized by this new peace deal, I think it's Donald J. Trump. I love this guy. I'm not perfectly satisfied with everything, but compared to past administrations, I'm as happy as a Michigan deer hunter can be.
All right, well, let me ask you about one other president, because you've been pretty vocal in saying that up until now, Barack Obama was the greatest president of your lifetime. That's what you said, right?
Yes. Well, I say it in a gastric belch on our Spirit of the Wild TV show on the Pursuit Channel. I'll just be nonchalantly tracking a deer and I'll belch the syllable Barack. And it's the funniest thing since Richard Pryor's afro caught fire, because using Barack's name in a belch is probably the most proper application of that syllable one can be. I don't like the guy. He was a bad man. He was a terrible president. I believe he resurrected racism. I believe that his entire program, his entire policy, his entire administration has now been proven with his Russian hoax that he orchestrated. So we can wax poetic and have fun with the Barack Obama insanity, but it's not funny.
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
Really cruel, and it's really treasonous. We don't like this guy.
Yeah, I'll give you that. We're talking to the great Ted Nugent, the show Spirit of the Wild. It is the most watched show in the history of the Pursuit Channel, Ted. How about that?
Yeah, because I'm so damn funny. And Mrs. Nugent has a Queen of the Forest segment. Even if she wasn't my wife, I would watch that segment, Shemaine Nugent's Queen of the Forest, on the Ted Nugent Spirit of the Wild program 8 times a week. She is so fine, and she is such a great hunter, and she is such a great health advocate before we made America healthy again. So yeah, Spirit of the Wild, important stuff.
I love that, Ted. Well, give me one more thing while I still got you on the line. We got about a minute to do this. Trump, obviously, he secures the border. He makes a peace deal in the Middle East. He's cutting taxes. He passed a big, beautiful bill. If there was one superficial thing he could accomplish this year, what would you fix in society, Ted? If there was one thing that we needed to do more of or less of, or doesn't even need to be political, if there's something you think.
Well, number one, this guy, if he can manage his hair as effectively as he has managed his hair, even in a windstorm, the guy is capable of nothing short of miracles. So let's just leave it up to his decision-making. He's got a great staff, a great administration, and he's in touch with the guitar player from Detroit, because I not only wrote Wang Dang Sweet Poon, but I have my own Ted Nugent buck lure that's called Dang Sweet Buck Tang. So I want to get President Trump to join Eric and Don Jr. on a hunting trip with the Nugent family. That would be the epitome of conservation ethic, environmental awareness, and to make America healthy again from the ground up. So Donald Trump, let's go hunting, baby.
Amen. The only warning I'm going to give you is if you tell Trump that you're hunting angry pork, he's going to think you mean J.B. Pritzker.
And he'd be right. I'm on my way to the Windy City right now.
Oh, Ted, well, behave when you get there. We love you, buddy. Good to get the band back together today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Jimmy. You deserve me, and I deserve you. I love you, buddy.
Love you more. Take care. The great Ted Nugent. Christiana Manapur, of course, she is a correspondent over at CNN.
CNN is the worst.
A lot of people feel that way. She apologized, finally. She just got put in the internet dunk tank yesterday. She, of course, in real time, as the hostages were being released, tried to make the claim that the hostages in Gaza were actually treated better than the people in Gaza because they were leverage for the Hamas.
You don't have a clue.
Guys, we saw videos of people starved nearly to death, an emaciated man being forced to dig his own grave. And Christiana Manapur gets on TV and goes, the hostages actually had it better than everybody else. Insanity. And we're living in this moment where she was basically trying in a roundabout way to diminish Trump's achievement in getting the hostages. Well, people are excited to get the hostages back, but I mean, let's be honest here. The hostages were doing fine. I mean, they didn't really accomplish anything. Now, if you would have helped out the people in Gaza, but here's a newsflash, dopey. He did help out the people in Gaza because the bombing just stopped. But here she is yesterday. Here's the initial comment. Okay, and then I'll give you the apology. Clip 15.
People who start to talk to the hostages who've only just been released will find that it will take a long, long time for them to recover physically but also mentally. It's been a terrible, terrible 2 years for them because not only are they there, they're probably being treated better than the average Gazan because they are the pawns and the chips that Hamas had. Now Hamas has given up all its leverage, by the way, by giving them all up. So that is a victory for the Israeli side.
So it's kind of a throwaway line, but she says they are the pawns and the chips. They're probably being treated better than the average Gazan because they are the pawns and the chips that Hamas had. I mean,
that is balderdash and hogwash and
honey, if they were being treated better, okay, the other 80% of the hostages being taken would still be alive. They're dead. There are no female survivors. You, as a air quote female journalist, might kind of latch on to that from an empathetic standpoint, at least intellectually. But no, the fact that 20 people remain out of a few hundred, a lot of which died we're still waiting to get the bodies back, the remains of the people who died in captivity. And she's on TV kind of making that subtle aside of, if we're being honest, it's going to be hard. It's horrible what they went through. It's going to take years to recover. But at the same time, they had it a lot better than the people in Gaza. Am I right, you guys? Straight clown stuff. And here she is in the same breath, not the same breath, but on the same day, being forced to walk it back. Clip 16.
Now, earlier live on air, I spoke about what a day of real joy this is for Israeli families whose loved ones are finally being returned from 2 years of horrific Hamas captivity, and for civilians in Gaza who finally had a reprieve from 2 years of brutal and deadly war. I noted that for the hostages who are finally home, it'll take a long time for them to recover mentally and physically. But I regret also saying that they might have been treated better than many Gazans because Hamas used these hostages as pawns and bargaining chips. But that was insensitive and it was wrong. From speaking to many former hostages and their families, like everyone, I've been horrified at what Hamas has subjected them to over 2 long years. They've told me, as you've just heard, their stories of barely being able to breathe in the tunnels, not being allowed to cry, being starved and made to dig their own graves. And of course, today, some of the hostages are coming back in body bags.
Which is basically her way of saying,
Oh, my mistake.
Because what she originally said was none of that. She said, this is the verbatim quote, they're probably being treated better than the average Gazan. They're probably being treated better than the average Gazan. But in the retraction, she says, they've told their stories of barely being able to breathe in the tunnels, not being allowed to cry, being starved, and made to dig their own graves. They're probably being treated than the average Gazan. That was the initial claim because in that moment, you understand, this is where a lot of people are just idiots. You have to let people get the win when they've objectively earned it. Trump getting back the hostages is unequivocally a win, a historic into the encyclopedias, if they still publish books 10 years from now, win. Okay, every world leader acknowledges it. Everyone with any self-respect in this country knows this is a monumental win. But for the people whose lifestyle has become, I just need to hate Trump no matter what he does, there's always going to be an angle. It's like, think of those pregnant women 2 weeks ago when Trump was like, don't take Tylenol. Now, I don't know the answer on that. I don't know if you take it, you don't take it, obviously. I don't have a proof. I'm not a scientist one way or the other. But the idea that pregnant women jumped onto TikTok and were like, Trump said don't take Tylenol, I'm taking it right now. Okay, that is emotionally, that is mentally not well. Okay? Because you're subjecting yourself to potential harm only because you have an emotionalist reaction to what Trump did. Stupid. But that's Christiana Amanpour. If she was working somewhere with a little more decency, she would have got fired. You're watching people like literally weep in the arms of loved ones who thought they were dead and would never be seen again. And you're like, yeah, let's be honest. I mean, they had it pretty better than the average person in Gaza. And why is she taking that position? Because she is of the mindset, like Zoran Mamdani and the AOCs of the world, that there was a genocide going on in Gaza.
That is a fact check false.
Guys, they weren't there because Muslim people live in Gaza. There's 2 million Muslims living peacefully in Israel. Okay, they don't have a Muslim problem. They have a terrorist problem. They wanted the terror group out of power. That's why this conflict ensued. Hamas paraglided into Israel, killed 1,200 people, took a few hundred hostages and left. That's what Israel's trying to get back, those hostages. That's what this conflict was over. Yet you're sitting there trying to tell us there's some type of a moral equivalence. It's like saying on September 11th, Al-Qaeda flies planes into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, but America's actually the bad guys here. You know that, right? That's essentially what they were doing. That was the Gaza side of this free Palestinian argument. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's now free. And are any of the Democrats out there in the streets celebrating? No, because it was all political posturing. But knowing Trump has attained what people thought was an unfathomable victory, they still have to try to minimize the impact of the win by going, wow, let's be honest, these people had it pretty good. If it went on another 5 years, did he really achieve anything here? And that's kind of the way they try to temper it, because they know they're catering to a significant percentage of their audience that just doesn't want to acknowledge anything good the guy does. Okay, some Democrats did. Bill Clinton did. Here's Trump talking about Bill Clinton giving him his flowers, clip 12.
I liked Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with him. He used to be a friend of mine. Came to my wedding, So did she. People don't know that. But no, I've always liked him. I thought it was very nice, actually. And what is he doing? He's telling the truth. Because nobody else has been able to do it. I'm talking about the Middle East, yes.
So that's Trump. And he says he always liked Bill Clinton. We used to be good friends. He came to my wedding.
This is not okay.
Well, to be clear, Hillary went to his wedding just the same. They hung out. They were friends. When Trump entered politics, everybody who used to hang out with him, take his money, hang out at Mar-a-Lago, okay, every single one of them was like, oh, this is not the same Donald Trump I knew. Of course it was. There's no two different versions. You don't get like the TV character and the off-the-air character. Trump on TV has absolutely, positively zero filter, making him the same as Trump off TV.
Correctamundo.
Here's another guy, though, because Trump's talking about Bill Clinton giving him credit. Bill Clinton did give him credit. Obama didn't. Abby Phillip, to her credit, called out Obama. Clip 11.
President Obama put out this post talking about the peace deal and the prospects of it. And Don Jr. responded to it. I'll finish it for you. Thank you, Donald Trump. Honestly, it's not unfair to say if President Obama's going to write a whole post about a peace deal, maybe he should acknowledge the president that brokered it.
Give Abby Phillip credit for that. If Obama's going to acknowledge the peace deal, he should acknowledge the president who brokered it. Straight up. But he can't because it's a petty grievance. And he doesn't want to give his side license to go, hey, we can take a step back and give Trump the win on this one because it's a win for the world. But they can't because it's that petty. And again, right-wing commentators get this one wrong. We all go, well, they've got Trump derangement syndrome. No. They're just stupid. That's all it is.
That is correct.
Here is Bill Maher. Okay, give Bill Maher credit because he's stoned when he says this. This is on the Club Random podcast. Bill Maher smokes like 1.5 yards of weed, weighs in on world events with other actors. I think the great William H. Macy was on this one. And here they are talking about it, clip 13.
I always say this, you cannot ever deny success. You just have to give your respect, even if it's not your thing. Have the humility to give it up for enormous success. On any level.
I agree.
Trump, not my choice, didn't vote for him, but somehow,
a lot of people did.
And he's, I can't deny the success.
I can't either.
Yeah.
And he's the president.
So there you go. And that's Bill Maher saying you can't deny the success because he did something we all wanted to see happen. Just because the guy who made it happen isn't the guy you voted for doesn't mean you should pretend it doesn't matter. Because that diminishes you, your own intellectual standing in the eyes of people who are just objectively bargaining with you. Like, do you know why I kind of lean to the right now? I think all politicians, I mean, to be honest with you, like 99.9% of them are full of honestly. But I was not into politics. Like, I followed it the way you follow sports, who's winning, who's losing, and all that jazz. But I was a taxi driver. I was driving a cab for 10 years. Okay, I got into politics. This is going to seem so stupid to you, but I got into politics when Bruce Jenner transitioned to Caitlyn Jenner because I was a huge sports fan, and I recognized the significance of what that meant in the sporting world and everything in between. And I started to just follow what we now know to be identity politics and the culture wars, because I saw how everyone on the left suddenly loved this Caitlyn Jenner character. She was on all the talk shows. She was getting an ESPN Courage Award. They were telling us, like, if we didn't support her, we should be fired and publicly executed because we have to support all the trans people all the time. She's courageous. She's brave. Get in line. Shut up. Look at how gorgeous she is on the cover of Vanity Fair. And then one morning she got out of bed, told The View she was a Republican, and every single Democrat in the country was like,
Get her out. Get her out of here.
And they completely turned. And it was like she never existed again. For all intents and purposes, the Jackie Robinson of the trans movement. Like, she normalized it in mainstream America by getting on the cover of Vanity Fair, getting saluted at all the award shows, and then the liberals who championed her rise to prominence in that regard completely ostracized her for not maintaining the same political worldview that they did. And that was the end of Caitlyn Jenner. She actually wound up working at Fox News, which is hilarious. And she's a really funny person. I've talked to her about a million times. I have a great story about her getting me out of the White House Correspondents' Dinner that I'll tell you a little bit later on then if everybody behaves. But the point is, okay, the left, because you don't embrace their politics. It's not about how you identify. It's about how you vote. Okay, look at black conservatives like Byron Donalds. Look at Tim Scott. Wesley Hunt. Can you imagine the things that get said about them by liberals? Oh, God, so racist and horrible because they're not part of that, diversity of thought drives liberals crazy. They want diversity of look, of aesthetic. Let's get 10 different people in here who don't look the same, but make sure they think the same. That's the thing. But when you get that petty and stupid, you understand, I, as a guy who didn't follow politics, saw the way they ostracized Caitlyn Jenner, and I was like, I'm going to start paying attention to this political thing. That's an interesting strategic gambit there by the liberals. I didn't see that coming. She was in and out of style in like a week. It's really weird. She's not allowed around the parties anymore because she's a Republican. And then I started to realize how the Democrats really have this strategy. It's crazy, though. It's really, really crazy. And it's this reductive strategy where instead of embracing the Martin Luther King vision of I want to live in a world where we judge someone by the content of their character and not the color of their skin, the Democrats went the other way, made everything about the color of their skin and about party conformity and embracing their ideology. And although they were saying it under the guise of we're just here to protect the minority community, okay, they don't actually care about any member of the minority community if they're not voting Democrat. Okay, and as it pertains to the minority community writ large, they still don't care. They're the ones who wanted to defund their police. They're the ones that are out there encouraging you to violently resist ICE agents who are trying to clean up inner cities in America that have, record high murder rates. Everybody goes, Chicago, the murder rate is down. Chicago per capita, if it was the same size as New York City, would right now have the highest amount of murders in New York City's history. So you can fudge a number and tell me it's down by some metric, but it's up by the amount of dead people in the street. And Donald Trump trying to stop that doesn't actually make him the racist. You trying to block it is what really tells the story.
Race is not where the line is drawn. It's God's side and the other side.